Good evening. So excited to be here. New Earth Radio with Pierre Garreaud, Peruvian Sun Healer and Shaman. And today I'm so excited. I have a very unique and special holder of the Divine Feminine Torch. And this is my good friend, Karen Leys. She's a guide mentor, navigator, anchor for truth seekers willing to dive in beyond the body. That's also the name of her website. And she's a phenomenal woman that does amazing light work. It's a light warrior, and happy to have you, Karen. How you doing?
Hi, thank you. Wow, wonderful introduction. Thanks, Pierre. No, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you. I'm really
Awesome.
happy to be asked to join you in this venture of yours. I feel very honored and very privileged.
Great. I know I you invited me to one of your shows, and I was also very happy to participate. And it's interesting because neither you or myself knows how we ever met. But I remember following you in Facebook as you were going to Standing Rock, I think.
Yeah,
And I also have some common friends that were going down there. My good friend Cindy Lou was going there. And somehow I started following and seeing the posts that you were doing. And here and there, I think we connected, or I sent you a message or something like that. But I think that you think that we met in a different way, and that's also possible. So I don't know. But
I don't know.
there's one thing that I'm certain is we're all guided by our higher selves that are putting us in the right places because we all have a purpose and a mission in this particular life that is one of the most amazing ones. This is, to me, it feels like we've been doing this particular lifetime many times and rehearse it many
Mm,
lifetimes. And we've finally come to this place where we are asked to really come into our best authentic self, to our best that we can be, to create and generate and put our light, all of our light out, so we can create this amazing shift that is required. So what do you think?
definitely. Yeah, no, definitely. And as you were saying that, what was sort of swirling around me was about how this particular incarnation for so many people is so intense, so intense in the darknesses that we've had to face to get to this place, to get to this light that we're now bearers of. And it sort of pulled up in me a download that came to me back in October 2017, just before a huge event took place in my life. And, talking about the light, to be able to be true holders of light,
Mm-hmm.
we really have to traverse the dark. We have to dive into the dark. We have
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
embrace the dark and own the dark
Mm-hmm.
within
Mm-hmm.
us, within our aspects,
Yeah.
because as we see in the world around us now, there's so much pain and suffering and confusion. And in amongst all of that, there's so much projection on the other and
Right.
all the aspects that are so difficult for us to hold, we throw out on the other, whether that's the other person, another event, whatever it is. So to get to this place where we're able to bear light, you, I, and all the people that you are connected with that you've met over the last 3 or 4 decades probably have had to go to some really painful places and really painful realizations about self, not just in this life, but in past lives. And I don't speak for everybody. I can only speak of my own journey, but there's this individual journey that we're all on the platform of a collective stage.
Mm-hmm.
that we're all experiencing the same processes, but just with a different stage set. And it's the stage set that we give meaning to.
Mm-hmm.
And the people, the actors, the dressing, the script that we give meaning to.
Yeah, I think that we all are and have been in the hero's journey, right?
Mm,
It's kind of like we have to go and get beat up and go into the floor, and then suddenly, we hit that rock button, and then we start. Okay, I need this. I don't need this. And start looking, as you said, we have to look at our shadow, and then start working with uncovering, embracing that shadow, bringing it to the light, and suddenly, little by little, we start seeing that by doing that, it's only with acceptance and love that we start embracing that aspect of ourselves that is that the radiant self, the soul that starts having a moment to really guide and show us the way.
yeah, so you mentioning acceptance and though and moving in through those processes, and they're in scriptures and ancient texts all the way through these processes of surrender, of letting go, of
Exactly.
acceptance, of forgiveness to self and other. All of these qualities that we have to embrace, and we generally have to embrace them when we're still entangled in the egoic illusion and wrapped in fear. So it takes a huge amount of energy to be willing to walk into those places that are
Hmm.
seem so terrifying.
Right.
And it's the development of trust and faith. And you see these qualities mentioned throughout so many ancient scripts. And it leads me to, I didn't know at all where my life was going when
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I first re-awoke to I can't pretend I'm not me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had, would I have accepted the call? You mentioned the hero's journey, the monomyth. Would I have accepted the call? I'm sure I probably refused it a few times before
Right.
I
Yeah.
was shoved out of the door to accept that call.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think if we had a glimpse at what we had to go through, most of us would probably refuse the call. So there's this
Mm-hmm.
divine beauty in that we just get enough of a taste of an essence of what we're seeking to keep us going without having to face the fires that we're going to have to go through before we get to them. Because each stage that we go through, we develop qualities, we develop a strength, we develop an
Mm-hmm.
awareness that we didn't have prior to that. So then we're at a stage where we can go into the next step. And
That's totally awesome because enlightenment doesn't happen in take one ayahuasca and then you're enlightened. It's a big joke when I
mm,
when I hear that people go to places, be it Peru, Colombia, or now in Costa Rica or Hawaii, and they do one ayahuasca and they are all enlightened. I feel that there is a big mistake because that enlightenment only happened with a crown chakra opening at such a level, and the whole part on the bottom, people don't work with all the first three chakras that have the load of all those things that happen in the life, and we're bypassing this whole section. So this illumination that is perceived as this great illumination is a false perception of a reality that hasn't been worked. So it's so important to work with with our shadow, and bring that into the light. Because if not, it's kind of like the opening that happened is a little bit of the arrogant. I am God and I know everything, and I talk to God and I'm great, right? And this part is not dealt with. So talking about the energy that is release, the energy that is freed when you work with that shadow self. And suddenly we spend so much time just holding into our protections, holding into our shields, holding into the triggers that I don't want to show my triggers to people, because if they go and dig me here, I'm gonna have to explode, or I'm gonna have to, protect me and all of that. And when someone does the work and this transformation happens, the bottom line is that we free so much of our energy, because our ego and all the managers within us are putting so much work to keep everything under that appear, what that which is an appearance, it is not real, because we're holding into keeping that appearance, and we overextending so much and using so much energy that, we're basically tired,
Yeah.
always tired, always consumed. So when we work with this shadow self, we bring it to the into the fire, we free and liberate so many things. And finally, as you were saying, we are allowing ourselves to step into that threshold, that you start seeing your own light, and then you start saying, wow, this is amazing.
And it's still, a couple of things you mentioned are really key to focus on. I think, we're living in a consumer society, but we're also paradoxically living in a moment of great awakening across the planet. And these two things are at the moment sort of rubbing up against each other. So yes, people are waking up, but also they're so propelled by their desires to obtain whatever they can pay for, that they
Right.
believe they can buy spiritual
Mm-hmm.
awakening,
Right.
But for me personally, this has been a 3-decade plus process to get to this point, where this year I could no longer say I'm not ready to be fully of service.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a part of me that was very aware, that was always pushing me to check my arrogance, check in on my desires to share. But there was also this other part of me that was always saying, no, I'm not ready, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. And then something just happened in January and I became ready. And things have just been happening. But
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, it's been a 30-year process. It hasn't been a process of going to have myself attuned, to have my crown chakra awakened, because
Mm-hmm.
what we see in that is that people can enter a state of psychosis when the energy, the kundalini, rushes
Right.
and expands into the consciousness, which is
Mm-hmm.
available through these pathways, definitely. But the apparatus isn't ready. The
Mm-hmm.
integration, what you were talking about, the lower chakras, the work
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been done there to realign the frequency of the emotional body, the mental body, the physical body, to then hold that frequency, that the ayahuasca or whatever
Mm-hmm.
um, psychedelics been used, there isn't the apparatus to hold that integration of divine consciousness.
Right.
So, two things can happen. It can just dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
So all these amazing experiences of oneness just disperse back into the universe, or it can have an effect on the apparatus, where, like you said, the arrogance, the persona of, or the sense that that person has become very powerful because they've had this experience, or psychosis.
Mm-hmm.
So in ancient spiritual alchemy, and I talk about that because that's been underpinning, and it's only just really come to my awareness that that has been what's been underpinning my whole journey. they mention two paths, the dry path and the wet path.
Okay.
And the wet path is this, what we talk about, this quick rush to get to this point of transformation. And the dry way is a slow process of transformation, assimilation, integration, and embodiment of that frequency, that stage, before we move into the next phase. And that phase isn't determined by us.
Mm-hmm.
We can cultivate the ground, but generally, if we don't know how to cultivate the ground, we're going to be planting seeds in ground that isn't fertile for that to grow to the next phase, which
Mm-hmm.
is where I feel people end up going in circles, in cycles, round and
Right.
round and round patterns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just amazing. And I was, before we started, I started talking about ascending the sacred spiral, and that's a concept that I have with that, because we have, like, every 7 years we are building an emotional body, which this emotional body is really a consciousness, is an awareness, right? Every 7 years a chakra is built.
Mm.
So I remember at the Self-Realization Fellowship, which I belong, Yogananda's monks, monastery of people that work with his teachings. There was a brother that will say, it takes us 49 years to accomplish our emotional bodies and develop these levels, these different levels of consciousness. And then we hit 50 years old and we get middle-age crisis, right? And we are told, okay, you accomplished all these 7 years, and then suddenly you say, no, now you need to unlearn it. you
Yeah.
know, now you need to unlearn it. So, yeah, it's like we develop these levels of awareness and consciousness every 7 years, and they're like concentrical circles, being at the base, that the bigger recording that we can do in the first 7 years as a child, because we're in theta waves, and the programming and recording is
Yeah.
extremely deep. So trauma and fear at that level, terrorizing, really hurts that person, as for the entire life.
Yeah.
And so these concentrical circles build, and they get smaller and smaller and higher. But eventually, the whole work is to be able to connect the concentrical circles, start working the pieces that are in these circles, the traumas, the hurts, whatever there is, as if you see it as rocks, that you start owning these rocks and become like a stepping stone to move to the second level and to the third
Mm-hmm.
level. Every time you unlearn and start working with these pieces, which are part of your shadow self, then you start integrating and bringing it in to the point that eventually you're going to be start to spiraling. So it's no longer concentrical circles and walking and hitting the same kind of event that happens in your life, because you learn the lesson from whatever happened, because we constantly are recreating. Your subconscious is usually pushing you all the time to recreate events that are gonna make you finally learn the lesson.
Yeah.
So when we are able to see that whatever happened in our past, whatever created that amazing shift, I said, in the negative way, because it deterred you to somewhere else. Whenever you look back and you're able to learn that lesson, then you are started to link all those concentrical circles and becoming the spiral. So yeah, so that's something that I've been working on, as ascending the sacred spiral, as a method to bring awareness and to embrace the shadow, and release the energy that we have, part of ourself, aspect of ourselves that are captured in those particular timelines and locked into the timelines, because we need to bring those aspects back to our present instead of being
Yes.
stuck on the past.
Yeah. So, my learnings and my teachings along the way opened me to a transpersonal psychology that I studied called psychosynthesis. And within that model of transpersonal psychology, we talk about subpersonalities, but these subpersonalities are live entities, and they've split off, holding the trauma at the age that it's happened, and they're holding the trauma because we couldn't possibly walk through life holding all of our trauma and feeling it and thinking it on a daily basis.
Right.
So it splits off and it's holding itself in the divine matrix until we're triggered, and then it jumps back in and acts out. So the majority of people who are acting out when they're in defense or attack or feeling threatened are coming, an aspect will jump in, and it's generally, like you say, from between 0 and 7 years old. So when you see adults arguing, it's like 2 7-year-olds just jumping in and trying to work through an adult conflict, but without the skills to do that, which is why so many people get stuck in that. So, you know, within that, these subpersonalities are not only, we don't only have these connected from this lifetime, they're with us from past lifetimes, and they're also aspects of self that may have needed to be split off because they weren't safe in the environment that we were brought up in. So we could be in a family where showing love and having fun wasn't acceptable. And if that was our nature, those aspects would have had to be split off and buried so that we were safe and nurtured and weren't exiled from that, our care family. So the reintegration of shadow, I think people have a fear of the shadow because they see it as all the darker aspects, but there's also the aspects of our love and our joy and our fun and our spontaneity and innocence and all these beautiful things that we may have split off, and we probably did as we were growing through the sort of educational system where we had to work from the intellectual masculine consciousness, whereas the intuitive feminine consciousness wasn't seen as purposeful. So those aspects was separated off and buried. You see so many people who will say, I can't sing, or I can't draw, or I can't write, or I can't this, or and then normally the creative aspects that we've, as society, as deemed as not as important, but we're in this beautiful moment now where the divine feminine is really emerging, and it's not just emerging through the female, it's merging through the male. And we sort of touched on this when we last spoke, that, you know, it's the marriage within us, within each and every one of us, of our divine feminine and our divine masculine, so that I, as a woman, am able to take the actions needed for myself instead of waiting or hoping or looking for the male to do those. And the same for the male. The male is no longer having to look to the female to express emotions. It's about embracing those, the divine masculine and the divine feminine in us. And yes, the people have got this false assumption that it's about getting rid of the ego. It's not. It's about reintegrating the healthy, non-distorted aspects of ego. But first we have to go in and find them. And then we have to re-love them and help them to recognize that they're not bad, they're not needed. Their purpose in our life will be transformed as we are. So where maybe before they were prone to use addiction, prone to addictive behavior, well, though with addiction, you know, we have the qualities of discipline, of commitment, of focus, of doing everything you have to do to obtain the thing that you're trying to gain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all those qualities, when healed, are so important
Useful.
for
Yeah.
spiritual development. We need commitment, we need
Mm-hmm.
motivation, we need strong will, we need all these aspects,
Mm-hmm.
but it's about reconciling the wound, but not throwing out the qualities held within the wound.
Right. So it's connecting with your ego and embracing the ego. No, it's part of the process. So embracing the shadow is embracing that ego that was hurt. Is embracing that aspect of you that you don't like, and use it in a good way. I mean, without our ego, we wouldn't be able to do any tasks whatsoever
Well,
because
exactly. We are
there's a purpose,
spirit.
right?
Yeah, we have soul. We are spirit in form.
Yeah.
So we need these. For me to be able to create my website, for instance, write an article, I
Yeah.
need my my mind. I need my
Mm-hmm.
ability to
Mm-hmm.
put everything in place to action things.
Mm-hmm.
But I also need to be able to not be in a place where I'm controlling everything. So then all of those aspects from the egoic intellectual mind are set aside and the
Mm-hmm.
flow can come through.
Right. So it's amazing that we're talking about this because one of the questions I was going to ask you was about the creative process. And knowing that you're an artist, and I wanted to talk about your painting behind you and what it
I don't
means,
I wouldn't say I'm an artist,
uh, which is
but my lady.
which is a beautiful painting. And here we are. We're talking about the creative process and how important it is to be creative because I feel that the selling of fear at this moment in time is so immense, and people are looking for an outcome, looking for a solution. How can I pass this moment and have a
Yeah,
solution? If I have to take this V, I'm gonna take it because it's gonna give me a solution. And in reality, is we are losing connection, and we're being brought to our first chakra, the negative side of the first chakra, which is the struggle, right? Being in struggle, being not safe, and all of that. And it is so important that we bring awareness that regardless of what's happening outside, we have the inner capacity to tap into those other aspects that we are, like the creative, and how we can go and find that light within our creativity, as you were saying. Oh, I cannot sing, I cannot paint, I cannot draw. Everybody can paint, draw, and sing because we all have it. We all have it. We just have been able to explore it, or maybe at school a teacher said, "No, you're not a painter." Oh no, you have a terrible voice. But one thing I can tell you, and that's what I say, that everybody has talent, and everybody can express something as enunciating a sound. It might not be in the tone or the scale, but some of the most amazing, and I do workshops and I train people in doing sound healing, playing the drums and using your voice for healing. And some of the most amazing people that I found is the ones that don't have a clue how to do a melody or sing melodic, and then they start playing the drum. They start doing, and it creates such an eerie space, or that it definitely starts creating something inside you that needs to come out and help.
yeah,
So with that, I want to say that that particular sound vibration of that person that feels that they cannot sing, they by just doing it is creating a place, a sonic place that makes the other person have a reaction. So the other person starts feeling and starts creating that entropy or that resonance, and whatever is happening, that person is bringing out maybe a little bit of their own dark self or their shadow self that needs to be kind of like dealt with, right? So for me, A person that sings or doesn't sing doesn't mean anything. Can you
Mm.
create a sound? Can you express and bring that quality of your signature, your sound signature, to express and come out and create something with that voice? And it's the same with color. I mean, do you need to have the technique of Picasso to do the perfect body, the perfect face? No, it's how are you connecting with color? How are you connecting with the vibrancy of colors and putting in a canvas and just allow yourself to go from that place of loneliness, sadness, whatever, and just transform it, use it as a catalyst, and bring it out and put it on a canvas. You're not Picasso, but that expression of color is a transformational event that can happen, and that's what I see. That's how I see art, not as this perfectionist and this perfect melody or this perfect arrangement, but
Yeah.
is that quality of expression that is serves you, and that's what we have lost, is using art as a serving us as a possibility of catalyzing, transforming some emotional state, or unlocking or unblocking an emotional state that can receive immense healing just by exteriorizing those feelings, those things, into a canvas, into a song, into a vibration with your voice, into a movement, into a dance, right? So I'm just bringing that because I feel that at this particular time, we need to do that. We need to move, we need to
But
paint, we need to
you know,
sing.
yeah, all of that's so true. To get to that place, we have to be safe, feel safe,
Right.
which is why guides and therapists are really important. Not just anybody. You know, we can only take somebody as far as we've been ourselves. I can only navigate a terrain with somebody that I've explored and come back out of myself.
Hmm.
So it takes the sense of feeling safe to drop in, to then begin
Hmm.
to trust, to get out of the way, that, you know, and this is the conflict of what we were talking about earlier, the egoic self and the soul self. You know, we've fallen into form. We have this process of being wrapped and wrapped and wrapped of by the illusion of reality through our experiences. So we've created belief constructs, we've buried all these subpersonalities. So then we come to a place where we're so constricted that we need to break, but it's terrifying. So that's when we begin to seek somebody or something that can help us feel safe. And some people will go to substances that, and many people go to substances because that is a
Hmm.
place where they feel safe.
Right.
But when we can move through and realize the illusion of that safety and then move into true safety, which is held
Hmm.
on faith and trust, then what we can do is help to step out of our own way to allow the soul of who we are, the flow of spirit of through who we are in form, to
Hmm.
have expression. And you mentioned that painting. You know, the year before, I haven't painted since I was at school. So
Okay.
it was 40 years plus from when I picked up a paintbrush to then painting this. But this is part of my journey. You know, I've had a really strong connection to spirit through my life, and I hear what they are calling on me to do next. It doesn't mean that I'm
Hmm.
courageous enough to do it. That's where I have to go back into myself and recognize that I'm feeling fearful or I'm feeling constricted or whatever it is, and to unpick that with my spirit team to be able to say, okay, even though I don't know what this is for, I will do it. And that's been my thread through my life. So this painting, the year before I even began that, I just had this overwhelming sense that I had to start painting.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took another 6 months before I went and bought the paints and the paintbrushes and the canvas and the easel, and then it began about a week, 2 weeks before a massive process that I went through. And everything I do, because it's so tightly bound in spirit, I do it with such a sacredness because I don't know what I'm being asked to do, but I know I need to create it on a ground of sacredness.
Right.
That, and it scares me. It scares me. My heart beats. I go into avoidance, but I'm aware of that, and I'll
Right.
put the easel out, and I might walk past it for 3 days, like I did,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I haven't painted anything since that. So,
Mm-hmm.
and the first phase of this was just writing these words, and some words that were coming to me were just I'd not even heard of, but I wrote them down, and then I wrote them on the canvas, and it was all about total embodiment, I would say, at the end of it. I didn't know at the time. So then there was another phase and another phase, and there was lots of blessings that went on, and I've got pictures. There's about 8 layers underneath
Mm-hmm.
that. What's ended up as, for me, is my oracle self, but it's connected to the Egyptian lineage of Isis.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know at the time. So just before that, I sort of really dove into that. My daughter got very sick, and she'd been in and out of hospital a lot. And she phoned me and she said, "Look, Mum, I'm going to go back to hospital. I really don't feel well. Can you come down?" So I said to my husband, and normally I'd go for the day and stay overnight, and then I'd come home. But I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to stay at her apartment. So I packed up the paints and the easel and everything and took it all with me. And I'd go to the hospital during the day, and then I'd come home and I'd paint. And lots of things happened where she got very, very ill,
Mm-hmm.
went through many traumatic experiences. And at one stage, I think she may have been in intensive care. I woke with this vision that was so powerful. And I remember saying to them, "How do you expect me to paint that? I'm not going to remember that." But then when I started painting it, and I'm in awe as it's happening. This is how amazing it is, because even when I'm writing, I'm in awe because it's coming through me, and this most magnificent portal developed, and there were selenite crystals. It was I can't remember the name of the shape.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-sided shape, an octagon. And then in the center of it was this opening that sort of just went into the universe. It was a great big opening into the universe. And it was only after the completion, and I'm really aware that I've used that word, completion of the process with my daughter, that I was shown what that portal was for and what the rest of this was for. And when I was being given the prompt the year before, it was to get the energies ready
Right.
for my daughter's transition. And that was the portal that she had to move through.
Mm. How powerful.
Yeah, and it is. And even as I'm talking about it, it's really, really powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
to see that on the wall, there's lots of light language in it, I think. Don't know what light language is, but lots of symbols came out
Yeah.
as well. But they were all spontaneous. But all I know is that I don't need to know everything. I just need to say, okay, I'll be the vehicle. And that's what I feel we're coming to now. We're coming to this place where we really are coming to a point where we're raising matter to spirit and bringing spirit through matter. We're in a space now where the embodiment of the luminous self can actualize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's coming through people all over the planet in different ways, but we're at this point in human history where we are the second coming. We are the Christ consciousness that
Yes.
is
Mm-hmm.
finding vehicles to bring heaven to earth.
Right.
And to do that, we have to transform matter. We have to transform the emotional body and the mental body. And now I see why I was guided through my life with spiritual alchemy, to know these processes of transformation and how we can work with them, how we can
Mm-hmm.
recognize them and assist that process, not make it happen, but be the vehicle for it to have
Mm-hmm.
a flow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're all here to do. And I think I said this to you
Mm-hmm.
last week, you know, people like yourself and myself that have been really doing this shadow work for so long aren't here to get caught in the chaos of what's unfolding on the planet. We're here to hold the light.
That's right.
We're here to be the anchors of that light, so that people that haven't gained that awareness of what they really are, their true nature, don't fall into the darkness, that they can see that crack of light and move towards it, and then
Mm-hmm.
find safety in people like yourself and myself to access
Mm-hmm.
that in themselves.
Right. I see you know, all the ancient texts, spiritual texts have been talking about this moment. You know, we have Revelations, Apocalypse, however you want to call it. You know, in the Hindu texts, they talk about Kali Yuga, and we already went down the Kali Yuga, and now we're going in the up part of the Kali Yuga, and going, I think, is the next Yuga is Dwapara Yuga. I don't know if you pronounce it that way, but we're entering into a new period. We enter
Mm?
into the Aquario, a new era, right? So this is kind of like if we were to be reliving this moment and we have played it many times, deep inside ourselves, we know that this is it's kind of like the metaphor of a train that is coming by and it has been announced. It says, hey, at 5 o'clock, the train is going to be here. It's filling up because we've been filling up in the prior town. There's only one wagon and everybody's called to jump in the wagon and we're going to go to Enlightenment, and it's being announced and everybody knows, and you know, and suddenly there's a lot of interference, distractions. There's a lot of different things playing out to distract us from that particular very special portal train that is here, ready to get everybody on board. And I think for me it's like I really created this this radio show to let people know, listen, stop focusing and putting your attention on this ugly thing that is coming. Is stop focusing on expecting an outcome that is going to be better, because in reality this particular moment is being created for us to connect to the only thing that is real, that is here, is inside. This is the only thing real. It's me. Is hey, I am right here with me. Everything is changing, everything is shifting, everything is falling apart, but it's okay. So what is inside that needs to be open? What is inside that needs to start clearing so we can see the opportunity, because the opportunity is humongous. The
Even
energy.
this, yeah, even this you isn't the true you. This you is constantly transforming, is in the, it isn't reality.
Right.
And this is where we have to come to the essence of who we are,
Mhm.
the spark of divinity. But to get to that place, we have to go through these shattering the illusions of all the attachments that we've built up that have reinforce what we believe is
Mhm.
us,
Mhm.
to experience a sense of annihilation, but
Mhm.
actually in that annihilation is the liberation.
Right.
So
So we're being helped with this moment. That's what I'm trying to say. We're
massively.
being helped with having this crazy time of chaos, crazy time of not knowing where to go. So the news are good, the news are bad. There's fake news, and whatever is good news are turned into fake news. So it brings us back and say, okay, take a deep breath. What is real? Where is your own discernment, right? So it's really pointing us to say, okay, my discernment is telling me. So can we talk about that? How do you feel that something is real and something is not real?
So at a deeper level and at a broader level, this time in human incarnation is to clear the wounds of the past,
Mhm.
the all the unconscious outpourings through humanity over the time that we've inhabited this planet. And that's not, there's no blame or judgment on any of that, because the conscious awareness level when the wounds were inflicted was where it was. So that was normal. So whatever's happened in the time it took place was the collective consciousness of how we interact with each other. Yes, there were individuals that probably perpetrated really insidious harm,
Mm-hmm.
and coming to where we all are now, it's almost like the funnel is pouring in the wounds from our ancestors for us
Mm-hmm.
that are here now
Mm-hmm.
to own those darkest places in ourselves
Mm-hmm.
so that we transform those wounds. But what's happening at the moment is people are still projecting it externally, still seeing it as the other. If this stops, then I'll be okay, we'll be better, and or I won't feel so bad if I have this and if that's removed from my life, instead of looking at what in me causes harm to myself and to another.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that spring from in me, and going in and clearing that? And if every human on the planet did that,
We start
there'd be,
rising.
all we could do is, you know, embody the light, because the dark would dissolve. It wouldn't have anything to hang on to. It's hanging on
Mm-hmm.
to our fear of recognizing it in self. And I know, because I was shown in October 2017, just 3 months before my daughter transitioned, in a flash, when I was in Nepal with another shaman. And at the time, I didn't really know I was going there to do a life, birth, death training process. And I was having a coffee with somebody, and she was talking, and all of a sudden, this download happened, and it was like I saw this whole existence in a flash of what I was here to do. What I was here to do was nothing about writing a book, delivering a workshop, nothing. It was to recognize the horrors I had inflicted in a past life as a high priest
Mm.
and reconcile that in this life. And I'm
Mm.
not saying I fully understand it, but it was being shown to me over a 20-year period in tiny little blips, this
Right.
rage that I was carrying, this arrogance that I was carrying, because and the torment of being in a world and seeing and knowing things but not being able to share them. But that was part of the reconciliation that I had to go through.
Mhm.
I had to know all these things. I had to dive deeply into myself to heal all that darkness, to balance my karmic scales.
Mhm.
And I think I sense, and what I've been shown is that's what we're all doing as humans.
Yeah. Yeah. You
And
know.
too many humans want to jump into the light.
Mhm. And that process is so amazing when we talk about ancestral work, right? It's incredibly amazing because we probably are our own ancestors, right?
Yeah,
And we probably are still in the same DNA that we created a long time ago when we come back, because that's what they say, that we usually reincarnate with our soul families, and we come back and back again. So the ancestral work is very important, as well as dealing with our own past in this life, right? Ancestral karma, our own personal karma, and also our past life karma. So those three karmas are very important that we do that work. And eventually, there's a collective shadow dissolvement, and we start emerging as our
yeah,
authentic beings of love and light that we are. And so that's amazingly important. I had an aha moment one day, I think 3 4 years ago, also with a situation where my mother was almost dying. I mean, she had a moment where she was in the ICU, and she almost died, and she said something that really stirred everything out of myself. That I said, okay, I always knew that I don't want to be like my mother, right? Because there's some qualities that she has that she feels that she's going to heaven because my brother, I mean, I'm the shaman, he's the Catholic priest. So she says, I'm going to heaven because I gave God a priest, and that
yeah,
she has not done any work whatsoever for herself, right? Nothing. But she said, "Oh, I have a ticket. My son gave me a
yeah,
ticket,
yeah,
so it's a freebie. I don't need to do anything." But she has some qualities. I mean, way of being that I totally. I mean, I did completely the opposite of my mother. Completely the opposite. And in that particular night, she expressed something that was like so bizarre and so hurtful for me. I said, I can't believe my mother. I thought she would have done some amazing work through her life at this point in her life, that she's pretty old, right? And there was an aha moment that everything went as a mirror back to me. And he said, your mother in this lifetime, she has taken your attributes from a prior life so you wouldn't do it again. And I said, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Okay. So I being like that, and he said, yes. So your mother is the biggest expression of your blueprint of
Mm,
the things that you needed to work on this life. And
definitely.
I came into that loving moment and I said, wow, what an amazing truth that is.
It
You
is.
know,
And that's how I work with the people that come to me for guidance. It's, every person that is triggering something in you that you're rejecting in them, they're
yeah,
your mirror.
yeah,
You thank them,
right,
bless them, and go within. The longer you externalize it, the more you're brewing it and
yeah,
growing it.
yeah. And just to bring it back with my brother and the ticket to heaven,
Yeah.
to me, that moment, that aha moment, that's her ticket to heaven. I mean, it brought so much to me, right? That it creates that aha moment of saying, okay, wow, thank you, mother, for telling me that, and I'm grateful. So that's an awesome revelation, I think, for everybody that is listening, and the amazing work that is needed when we talk about ancestral work, and how we need to really work with our ancestors to purge, to clear, to release all that shadow self. Ancestors, especially in the northern countries of the world, that they have always been in war, no, because it's
Mm.
a northern hemisphere war. Usually is between them and then going south, right? Like all the Middle Eastern countries, and bringing our ways of being as a northern hemisphere and creating wars. So so many of our ancestors in the northern hemispheres have been involved in war, and in the carnage of, and the suffering, and all of that. And there's so much that needs to be done to find that forgiveness.
And there does. And but I think what happens is we have to leave the ancestors, but still connect to them whilst we're doing this work, because the the wounds of the ancestors are flowing through the blood of who are
Mhm.
present now.
Right.
So the people that were in conflict here now are the ancestors. And instead of focusing on the ancestral wounds, we
Hmm.
need to focus on what's in front of us, because that affects the ancestral line, not
Right.
focus on the wounds, because we're missing the
Hmm.
greatest opportunity with those in front of us that cause us the most distress.
Hmm.
if if my daughter hadn't been my daughter, I wouldn't have developed the qualities of surrender, of acceptance, of unconditional love, of hope,
Hmm.
spiritual hope, no matter how dark and tough things were, to be able to hold those things. And it was a 10-year process to come to that point, 13 years, to come to that point where I was ready to hold the space for her to move back through that portal. 13 years before, when I was angry with Spirit, my team, and saying, why? It's not fair. Why her? Why me? They said, why not? Why can't you be a mother that loses a child?
Hmm.
What makes you special? And if it's not you, who do you want us to give it to? And that floored me. But in that moment, I knew, because I was told, you have to work on you
Hmm.
to just to be able to hold her
Hmm.
in this.
Hmm.
So everything came back to me. So instead of
Yeah. Hmm.
seeing her as the the person that was causing my pain and suffering, because she was my child and I didn't want her to suffer and hurt and
Yeah.
be afraid and all those other things. Actually, she was my greatest teacher.
Yeah.
And only when she passed did I actually come to know how great a teacher she was, beyond the physical of my daughter.
Hmm. Blessings to her.
So I think we can spend too much time thinking about the ancestors, where the ancestors are flowing through the blood of the people that are
Yeah.
presenting
Yeah.
us the challenges now.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I know that my daughter and myself came into this life holding, like you talked about,
Hmm.
ancestral karma, individual karma.
Hmm.
We came into this world holding the karmic wound of female violation
Yeah.
and all all the things that go with that.
Hmm.
And together we worked on a thread of that.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you bring that the female sacrifices that has happened through eons and centuries. That's the burning of what they call the witches. We were light workers like us, like you and me.
Yeah,
Because of having an expanded vision and expanded, they could see truth and discernment. And there's so much stuff that has happened, between different segments of the world of because of trying to get control and controlling a reality. So these expanded beings wouldn't be showing and showering the light for moving civilization in the way that it was supposed
yeah,
to be. I um, I really think when we go under this um, non-profits or different events on the earth, that they say, well, we need to give retribution to this particular ethnic group in the world because they were under genocide and they were under this and that. And I think the greatest genocide that has occurred on the earth is the abuse of women and children. And that is so needed. I mean, we as men, we need to ask to be forgiven because of all those things that we have done as a male consciousness, and totally male unbalanced males are the ones that create wars. Those are the ones that are involved on running after money and creating all these different worlds, fictitious virtual worlds, to be able to create more money in the stock market or more money with technology. Or I mean, it's pretty much male abuse of power. And I think that women right now have the answer. And I say it because I know it. I do workshops. And who comes to the workshops to get better, to excel, to learn how to provide healing, to be better facilitators, assist? They're females. There's probably one male that comes out and say, okay, where is he coming from? you know, and there is an acknowledgement to all the women, that they are in the great good track, and they are moving through all this darkness and coming onto the earth incarnate as a woman is so precious. Because, and of course, balance females, because we also
yeah,
have the females that wear the suit and want to portray that they're
exactly.
the
Yeah,
men and all of
exactly.
that. But
So I think it's really important for people that are going
yeah,
to be listening to this to not hear it that it's men, but
it's the
the
qualities, the inner qualities.
it's the masculine energy of action, of control, of power,
Exactly.
of containment. It's that masculine energy that has been the patriarchal energy on the planet
Right. Right.
for generations and generations and generations. That doesn't mean that women are abdicated from that, because there's lots of women that have created harm. through
That's right.
life,
That is right.
because it's the masculine energy. So what's happening now is men haven't been supported until very recently to know how to go
Nurture.
inside and and feel their feelings and articulate their feelings, because they've been brought up in the masculine energy
Hmm.
of existence. So yes, some have deep sensitivities to their emotions, but they have no way of knowing how to express it because they're in this conflicted space in themselves.
Hmm.
But that can happen with women that are more have more masculine energy than quad um masculine energy.
In the sense of
Yeah,
the uncontrollable masculine
well,
patriarchal
not so much
energy.
uncontrollable, it's just an action,
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
sun is masculine, but
Yeah.
it so it can, if it's too prominent, it can burn,
Hmm.
so everything has to be in balance. But
Yeah.
the collectively through humanity, the masculine energy has been the energy that's powered life.
Hmm.
We're now moving into the dissension of spirit, which is the feminine energy.
Hmm.
And when I was made aware of the wounds that I'd perpetrated, I was in a male form.
Yeah.
So, this is the rebalancing. We're all, just
Hmm.
because I'm female now doesn't mean I was then, and the
That's right.
same as you.
That's
But
right.
most people have no understanding of even another life, let alone I may have
Hmm.
been a man in another life.
Right.
So this is where it's so important to keep going within, to balance the energies within self.
Hmm. Hmm. No,
Because I'm,
definitely.
because I've been perpetrating harm on self through my own masculine qualities that were out of balance
Right.
over my lifetime. So I have to work on doing that. And people in male physical form
Hmm.
have been perpetrating harm on themselves because they haven't been guided to know how to embrace, and even not even embrace, but
Hmm.
take the lid off their feminine energy of intuition, of
Right.
feeling, of emotion,
Hmm.
of all those qualities.
Yeah. Um, what would you recommend for people who are listening when it comes to how can we allow that divine feminine to anchor within us to bring that balance, that spiritual divine feminine and the divine masculine, because people.
It's a process, and
Hmm.
it's unfolding in so many people in so many ways, but there's things that block it. So, my pathway with helping people is a culmination of lots of study, lots of wisdom traditions that have come together. And
Hmm.
it's I say just, it's all like you're talking about your
Spiral.
spiral. This has come to a point where it's all emerging and showing me that, this is a path, and it incorporates spiritual alchemy. It's spiritual alchemy, which is a process of 7 stages. And we have to, if we move, we're always moving through these stages, whether we know it or not. And if
Hmm.
we aren't able to move from one stage to the next, we get stuck. And in that stuckness, we're sort of, you mentioned the first base 3 chakras. Well, it can be mainly the first center. So if we get stuck in that process, we are so attached to the egoic illusions, we have to come to a place where we may have had a physical illness or a mental illness or an emotional illness that stops us in our tracks. And we have to go through this process of calcination that is about burning off the egoic illusion, about stepping into that fear of facing what we've been talking about, the shadow aspects,
Mm-hmm.
and creating ground so that these attachments, these belief constructs, these ways of being can start to dissolve. And then we move into the second phase, which is dissolution, and then the third phase of separation, and then conjunction, and then fermentation, and then and then there's distillation, and then finally coagulation. It's the coagulation which is the dissension of spirit. But we have to go through these, and the phase of, the fourth phase is where we're at the heart center,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where we're beginning to open
Mm-hmm.
for spirit to descend.
Where do you
If we
think
haven't,
where do you think we are collectively right now? In
oh,
those 7 stages, are we
we're massively at the heart center,
at the heart center?
and people, we've moved through the heart center. Probably 30 years ago we hit that point.
Do you think we're in that fermentation that you were talking? That we're not?
No, I think we're in the heart space
Yeah.
where people have become aware of that heart space, but still haven't worked through the first three processes for the clearing, which is why that's where all the shadow work is.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we have to go into the shadow. We have to rebalance and reintegrate and discard what's not no longer required.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so collectively, you know, what happens if you look at all the outpouring of anger and chaos that's happening, that's where the shadows all being disrupted, but there's an onlooking of society that's saying, no, we can't do this anymore, we can't behave like this anymore. And all the protests around the world, that's coming from a heart consciousness, but
Yeah.
it's still not integrated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's still caught in the lower frequencies of each individual's own wounds. So as more and more and more people do this sort of work, we will shift into moving beyond an immature spiritual consciousness, and then begin embodying spiritual maturity, to be of service, to be the vehicles, to be the apparatus, to bring heaven to earth, to
Mm-hmm.
have this form ready for that vibration of energy to pour through.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a frequency.
Yeah.
We can only transmute and be a pathway for a frequency of energy if we've got the apparatus for it. If we plug a lamp into the mains, it's going to blow. And
Right.
that's what people are trying to do with, like you say, ayahuasca and
Right. Right.
the wet path.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right. So I would like to wrap it up in here, and I will want to thank you. But before finishing, I want to ask you if you have anything else that you think will help people get some tips on how to navigate through this tunnel. We know there's light at the end of the tunnel, but anything that you think will be appropriate to share that people will benefit and start doing whatever they need to do
Yeah.
to move forward.
What I think is most important is to know that you're supported.
Hmm.
And if you feel afraid, but you're compelled to seek, trust even in the fear.
Hmm.
Find whoever you need to work with that's been in and out of those spaces. Don't go to a map seller, find a guide.
Hmm. Right.
But but it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to not know. It's okay to be completely lost. There'll be somebody that can guide you. We're at a place now where there's so many beautiful humans ready to guide others now.
Hmm.
But
So you think
people
that
need to find their own team.
on the act of surrendering, the teacher will appear, the help will
Yeah.
appear, and that is an amazing piece because it's only when we surrender that things start shifting.
Yeah. And we can only surrender when we recognize that we're afraid, but it's
Yeah,
okay to be afraid.
right.
That's not gonna kill you.
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome. That's a great way to end. And I want to thank you, Karen. And
Thank
also,
you.
I want to thank the audience. Little by little, we are getting a little more audience. And I'm so excited because we're bringing people that are joining us. We are coming in and talking about consciousness. We're talking about important things that matter that will bring us back to not being so distracted and really see that there's great opportunity here for working within ourselves with the pieces that need to be embraced so we can be that channel and we can work with the apparatus with our whole body mind and soul and then allow the beautiful guiding light of our creator to start moving through us with all that wisdom and that merging with our higher self that would allow us to walk on this earth as these great teachers and masters that we
And
are
it's
meant to
not
be.
just open to special people.
Hmm.
Everybody
Everybody.
has the opportunity
Hmm.
to experience their true nature and
Yes.
to be the vehicle for this love to pour through.
Hmm.
It's open to everybody, and you're not
It's everybody.
special
It's
if it's
everybody.
happening to you.
It's
You
everybody.
know, we're all special, but we're all insignificant at the same time.
And yes, and it is the rising, the ascending of the earth is all of us. Is not just a few people that will be doing the work. I mean, it's we need to do this as a family, as a group of people,
Yeah,
inviting everybody at whatever level they are. Some people are already, the clear channel and the higher self is already there. But it's important that we are there for everyone and that we need to help each other because the moment that we do that and we start raising the vibration of the planet, then we're stepping into a beautiful, beautiful, magnificent earth, a new earth where people are creative and they can express their creativity, become the inventors, the scientists, and create all these
yeah,
amazing things, the paintings, the art, and we can all benefit with our uniqueness into this beautiful creation that we are aiming for. So again, thank you so much for
thank
being
you.
with
And just
us.
before I go,
Sure.
can you just, if anybody's interested in
Yeah.
understanding and exploring spiritual alchemy any deeper, I'm taking a group through it at the moment, but I'll be
Yes.
starting another one in June sometime. No,
Hmm.
April, some the end of April. The dates are on my website, but I'm going to be starting another course if people want to really work with these
Hmm.
processes of alchemy in their own transformation.
Beautiful.
Have a look at the website and get in touch with me.
I'm gonna be putting all your information in the video, and also I'm gonna have a little banner that's gonna be running below, so
Okay.
that way people are gonna see that and they can get in contact with you. I think that you have so much to offer. Every time I talk to you, there's a lot of expansion on my part just by listening to you and the things that you have to say. I'm really honored that you came on the show, and I thank you again.
Thank you. Like I said, thank you for asking me. It was an honor.
Yes, and
Thanks,
we'll
Pierre.
until we meet again and
Yes.
do another show.
You take care.
Okie dokie. Blessings to you. God bless you.
God
Bye
bless
bye.
you.